Hi, I'm Sarah L from Boating New Zealand, and I'm very excited to be here today to show you the new Elliott 1350Tourer. Now, you might be familiar with this design. They've been building them since around 2008, but this is the first new one to go in the water for quite a few years. The boat is usually based up in Marsden Cove in Northland, but it's down in Auckland today preparing to do the cruising division of the Coastal Classic. However, we had our test sail up out off the Whangarei Heads, which when you see the footage you'll agree is absolutely spectacular. But let's go aboard Speedwell now and have a talk to her owner, Bob Glenn, about how the design came into being. So obviously, Bob, you have a racing background. What were you looking for when it came to getting a cruising boat?
I wanted something that we could cruise in comfort, but also not give away too much performance, and that's why the Elliott Tourer sort of ticked a lot of the boxes right from the start. Albeit I did a look around the market to see what else was available, but kept coming back to the Tourer. Right,
and so you'd seen existing boats.
Yeah.
How did it come about that you ended up building a whole new one?
Anyone who wants to buy a Tourer finds it very hard because all the current owners don't want to sell.
Yeah.
So it was a matter if I wanted one at the time, and this is 2 years ago when we signed up to get this built, there was nothing available for sale. So it was a matter of do we just bite the bullet and do a new build?
Yeah.
And that's what we chose to do. And one of the advantages of that is you can get the boat you want rather than the boat that someone else wanted.
Right, and also you enjoyed being involved in the build process. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, well, I say I've had boats before where I've been involved in the build process, both right back from Pied Piper when I was sort of 20, and then 4 or 5 years later doing a young 88 as well, buying a hull and taking it home and finishing it off. With a new build I wanted to be involved again, and I saw this as a bit of a retirement project, and I wanted to get involved and be involved right through the process. So we certainly wanted to use the local industry where we could, and that was always a factor in any of the decisions we made.
What are your plans for using the boat now? You're based at Marsden Cove, and where are you going to cruise to from there?
Well, this summer will just be really a shakedown, so we'll just be up the north coast, and then next summer our plan is really to go south, so Mulberry Sounds and hopefully down to Fiordland. So it could turn out to be a total circumnavigation next summer. Can
you tell me what the boat's name is and why that's important or significant?
Okay, the boat's name is Speedwell, and there's some family history to that. My grandfather, Joe Patrick, was a prominent yachty back in already from the 20s through to the mid-40s when he passed away. He won the Sanders Cup for Auckland, competed in it for several times as the Auckland representative. In his later life he had a couple of keel boats. The first one was a C-class called Speedwell, and the second keeler he owned was Rainbow, the classic A-class A7. And my brother he's a part owner of Rainbow, so I thought it'd be nice to call this boat after my grandfather's other boat, so that's where the name came from.
So there are a few neat features here on the boarding platform. There's this outboard bracket, so you can take the outboard off the tender and stow it safely here. The tender folds up on these snap davits at the base, and there's also an outdoor shower. So stepping aboard and having a look at the layout here, the boat's really well set up for short-handed sailing, so if you're a couple offshore cruising, all the lines and sheets come right back here to these winches. This one is powered. We've got these two big racing style helms here which allow us plenty of good visibility forward. Another nice touch aesthetically here is the cork on the cockpit floor and on the coamings, along with these squabs. That gives it a bit more of a cruising touch. Another great feature if you're here at the helm is the fact that the navigation screen is right here, but it can also be pivoted and turned so it's easily visible from the other helm. So the cockpit floor is quite elevated, which means there's lots of volume in the hull for storage. There's an absolutely huge locker in here for sails or other equipment. To keep on-deck systems simple, the main sheet runs up into the boom and then internally back to the winch by the helm. There's also a pair of flexible solar panels up here to keep the battery banks powered. This boat is set up with a furling number 1. It also has this inner forestay for running a staysail when cruising long term. Currently the sail wardrobe also includes a code 0 and this beautiful red Jenica. There's heaps of room up here in the bow locker for sail storage as well, with a separate anchor locker forward. So the interior layout of the 1350s is all a bit different. In this boat, Bob's decided to go for a double cabin here to starboard, and there's a head on this side. The galley takes up all of this port side, and as you can see from here, you've got great visibility all round as well as back out into the cockpit. All the interior finishes have been chosen by Bob's wife Kerry, who has a background in textiles and quilting, and you can see some lovely touches of that throughout the boat. Because of the beaminess of this saloon area, there's plenty of depth in the bench and room for storage in both these drawers and cupboards above. Bob was keen to make the most of the latest technology in this boat, so he's installed a C-zone system instead of a traditional switchboard. The boat's electronics can all be controlled from here. Coming forward, it's down a few steps. We have a day berth on this side. Apparently that's a really great spot to sit when you're in the tropics with the hatch open above you. Head and shower here, which is semi-ensuite with the owner's cabin in the bow. For food storage, there's not only this underbench fridge, there's also this freezer which has been neatly tucked in under the berth. The boat feels incredibly well balanced. It's very light on the helm going upwind, sits in the groove beautifully and tacks like a race boat. We sit nicely on around 7 knots at about 35 degrees apparent, and you wouldn't get that from many cruising boats. It's fantastic to see these locally built sails by Calibre. It's a Dimension Polyant light skin carbon scrim with a skin of taffeta on the main. Popping up the brand new Jenica and bearing away, Speedwell accelerates smoothly and remains a pleasure to drive. I'm constantly tempted to heat it up and see how she goes, but this Jenica has been designed for flatter running. There's also a code 0 in the sail wardrobe for tighter reaches. So Greg, it's been about 12 or 13 years since the first 1350 was launched. Can you tell me about what the original design brief was and how the design came about?
Well, the original design came about because the original instigator of the design in that case had been around the world many times, and he was also partly involved with one of the original Tourer style designs I did, which was a boat called Armini, which was 55 feet. And after that he thought, well, that's a great concept, so I thought, well, you know, can we do that but in a smaller boat and you know, smaller size, and that's how it all became, how it all started actually.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So obviously that combination of retaining performance while adding cruising comforts is a really fundamental part of the design.
Yes, so well, performance is still a big part of the design, you know. So it's based on a performance hull, and the foils and that are well designed to make it hydrodynamically, you know, slippery, which I think is a really important thing for a cruising boat to be able to work the weather patterns you can use. That's the first thing, and then the interior fit out is sort of just pretty much to fit owners' requirements, but still wanting to stay within the tourer style, which is, you know, gives us indoor-outdoor flow. I think is a really important part of the whole design as well.
And also having the elevated pilot house, how does that help you retain the hull form while still having plenty of volume inside?
Well, the elevated pilot house automatically enables you to bring the saloon sole up, which all the machinery and heavy items fit under. But as the saloon sole comes up, the width increases, so you get a wider saloon than what you do with the one that's down lower, and it just increases the volume. The trade-off is the height, so it's quite it's a pretty big design challenge to get all the sight lines right and get all the levels right and still make it look good, because I think, you know, aesthetics is still a major part of it, and personally I think they look great.
So the 1350 has been a really popular design for you. Why do you think it's been so popular?
I think this size here, it makes it, you can manage it by yourself. It's sort of like around about the biggest you probably want to go without having, for example, a bow thruster. You can manage it quite easily for just two people, which is really just one person a lot of the time. And once you get bigger, they become more of a challenge, for sure. Especially when you put them in the berth and stuff like that. But and not just that, also at sea. Yeah.
And we talked a bit about the this idea of long-range cruising and being able to plan your cruising around the weather, and that idea of the boat being able to go 8 knots whether you're sailing or motoring. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, so at close to 45 feet, the speed is still, running at displacement speed, and that's governed by length. It always has been. And so this is sort of like it's an 8-knot boat by its length, and which is fantastic because you get, if you have a performance type hull, not only does it sail well, but it also motors well because there's less drag, for it to have to push. So that's really important, and to be able to get to that sort of 100 miles every 12 hours, 200 miles every 24 hours, it's a really good feature. And once you know you can do all that, you can plan your trips and safely plan your trips, I think is a big thing. That's
great. And so obviously you've got lots of experience with the 1350, having had one of your own. What were your favourite things about cruising on it?
Oh, just the pilot house, and that. It's once you have a yacht like this and go to sea in a yacht like this, you'll never go back to the other one of going back downstairs and into down below stuff and not being connected.
How important is it to you and to the marine industry here to see a boat like this being built here again?
Oh, it's extremely important. I mean, there's been a huge flood of imported boats of various types and sizes and everything like that. And I think it's significant that we're still certainly able to compete with imported boats, and we have a great pool of talent here that can, build fantastic yachts and powerboats as well.
What an absolute pleasure it is to be sitting on a New Zealand designed and built yacht, which is unfortunately quite a rarity these days. The boat has been beautifully built and finished by Hutchinson's in Tauranga and immaculately fitted out by its owners. With Greg Elliott's pedigree and the owner's racing background, I'm sure that Speedwell will prove to be a most appropriate name for this new yacht.
John Ecclestone from Boating New Zealand. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of these videos, please subscribe to our channel.